Welcome to another video by PAAC. In this video, we'll take you across the night sky and show you the various stars and constellations visible for the month of September. The best time to view the night sky this month is before the 10th of September or after the 22nd of September, as there will be no moonlight to obstruct your views. If you are new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and if you're on Spotify, hit that follow button and follow our podcast. So, let's begin. This month, if you head out at 8 p.m. each night and look above your head at zenith, you will notice three bright stars forming a triangle. The star closest to the zenith is Altair from the constellation of Aquila. Altair is known as the Shavana Nakshatra in the Indian system and is shining at a distance of 16 light years away from us. The constellation Aquila, to which this star belongs, is known as the Dhruva Nakshatra. Moving towards the other two stars in this triangle, the brightest of the three, which is towards the north, is the star Vega. Vega is known as the Abhijit Nakshatra in the Indian system and is part of the constellation of Lyra or Veena. This star, along with Altair, is a close distance star shining at a distance of about 25 light years away from us. And the dimmest of the three is the star Deneb or Hansakshi, which is part of the Cygnus constellation or the Rajahamsa Nakshatra. The star Deneb appears to be the head of a swan which is spreading its wings across the sky. You can notice the tail of the swan between the zenith and Vega, and the wings of the swan spread across the northeast and the northwest directions. Deneb is located at a distance of 1411 light years and is perhaps the farthest star that the eye can see. So once we've spotted the summer triangle, we will slowly move towards the north, and depending on your location, very close to the horizon, you may notice the pole star. The pole star is known as the Dhruva Nakshatra, and this month the constellation of the pole star, that is the Ursa Minor constellation, is also completely visible. Ursa Minor is known as the Lagu Saptarishi Mandala or the Small Dipper, as this is also a constellation made up of 7 stars and resembles the Big Dipper. Towards the west of Ursa Minor, we have the large constellation of Draco, which we've discussed in the previous month. Not many stars in this constellation are bright, and it's hard to make out the shape of Draco. As we move slowly towards the northwest from Draco, just above the horizon, we've got the constellation of Bootes, and depending on your location, the star Arcturus or Swati Nakshatra is almost setting. Between the west and the northwest, where you can locate the kite-shaped Bootes constellation, just above this constellation is the Corona Borealis constellation. This constellation can be easily made out as a small group of stars forming a U or a C shape in the night sky. Corona Borealis is also known as the Uttarakirita Nakshatra, and above Corona Borealis is the constellation of mighty Hercules. We have discussed about Hercules in the previous month, and one can easily identify Hercules using the 4 stars that form the quadrilateral or the torso of Hercules. As we move slowly towards the west from northwest, we've got the 3 constellations, perhaps the giant constellation of Ophiuchus, Serpens and Libra in the west. However, none of these constellations have bright stars for us to identify. So we'll slowly move towards the southwest, and you can clearly see that in the southwest, the sky is dominated by the Scorpio. The Scorpion in the night sky shines brightly with the red star Antares approaching the horizon this month and might have set in the next month. Below Scorpius, very close to the horizon, are the faint constellation of Telescopium, Ara, Norma and Lupus. In fact, towards the south, we've got the constellations of Pavo, Indus, and Tucana, the Microscopium, and the Grus constellations, but none of these constellations have bright enough stars for us to make out the shape. However, near the tail of the Scorpion in the southwest, you will notice the Sagittarius T-spot. Slowly moving towards the south, higher up in the sky, we've got the constellation of Capricorn and Aquarius between Altair and the horizon. The southeast sky this month is dominated by the faint constellations which we've just mentioned, and adding to this group we've got Hercules and Delphinus closer to the zenith, but none of these stars are bright enough. The southeast sky is dominated by just one star this month, that is the star Fomalhaut from the constellation of Pisces Austrinus. Fomalhaut, shining from 25 light years away, is known as the Meenakshi Nakshatra and is part of the Dakshina Meena Nakshatra Punja. You'll see two more bright objects in the southeast above Fomalhaut, but we'll come to this later on. As we move towards the east, we've got another faint zodiac constellation of Pisces, which is touching the horizon, and just above Pisces is the constellation of Pegasus, with the 4 stars forming the square. However, we'll come to Pegasus in the coming months as it takes up a position higher in the night sky. From the east, as we move slowly towards the northeast, we've got the Cassiopeia and the Cepheus constellations, which are very prominent and easily identifiable, but we will cover these in the coming months as Cassiopeia's M shape is not clear. As we move forward towards the north from Cassiopeia, we've reached back to Polaris in the north, and this region of the night sky is very prominent in Indian astronomy. We mentioned in the previous video that a star Thuban in the tail of Draco used to be the pole star once. Now we've got the star Polaris, which is the pole star. But the bright star Vega shining in the north at a higher altitude was also once the pole star. Yes, as you've discussed in the previous video, the Earth rotates on its own axis and this axis wobbles like a top. And as it does so, the axis traces out a circle in the night sky which passes through Polaris, Vega and Thuban. This circle traced out by this axis of the Earth takes 26,000 years to complete, which means in about 12,000 years the star Vega will be the pole star and all the stars in the night sky will appear to move around it. Back when the Egyptians were building the pyramids in 4000 BCE, the star Thuban was the pole star. So, the circle traced out in the night sky has its center near the head of Draco. And in ancient Indian astronomy, this point in the night sky was known as the Vishnuradhyam. Now, with all the bright stars and constellations visible this month discussed, we'll slowly move towards the south and look towards the east of Sagittarius. You can also notice that the center of the Milky Way is still visible this month, with the center slowly approaching the western horizon. But the beauty of this month lies in the constellation of Capricorn in the southeast, and above the star Fomalhaut you will notice 2 bright objects shining from this constellation of Capricorn. The brightest among the two is the planet Jupiter, which is a gas giant of the solar system, and ahead of Jupiter is the fainter Saturn. These 2 gas giants, which underwent oppositions in the previous month, appear to be the brightest in this month and the previous month, as when at opposition a planet is at its closest distance from the Earth. Jupiter is at a distance of 778 million kilometers from the Sun, and Earth, as we all know, is at a distance of 150 million kilometers from the Sun. We call this 1 astronomical unit. So, as the Earth moves around the Sun in its orbit, and so does Jupiter, these two planets come close at some point, forming an alignment where on one side of the Earth we've got the Sun, and exactly on the opposite side we've got the planet. So, a planet, when it lies exactly opposite to the Sun, is at its opposition. Jupiter had its opposition on the 20th of August and Saturn underwent its opposition on 2nd of August. To put it in a simpler way, opposition is like the full moon, when the moon is exactly opposite of the Sun and is at its brightest in the night sky. At its closest distance at opposition, the planet Jupiter is at a distance of 588 million kilometers. As the Earth slowly makes its way behind the Sun when viewed from Jupiter, is at its farthest distance from the planet at a distance of 968 million kilometers. Jupiter is a wonderful sight when viewed through optics like the binocular or a telescope. If you look at Jupiter with a binocular, you can easily see the 4 Galilean moons which appear to be in one or the other form every single day. With the moons Ganymede, Europa, Io and Callisto, Jupiter is a fun sight for an astronomer. However, if you look at Jupiter through a telescope, let's say 4-inch aperture or higher, you will clearly notice the bands on Jupiter's surface. Jupiter, being a gaseous planet, has several lanes of gases moving around and forming these bands. Once in a while, if you look through a telescope about 8 inches in diameter, you will also notice a red spot we call the Great Red Spot of Jupiter. However, the most beautiful object in the solar system that can be viewed through a telescope is the planet Saturn. Saturn, which is currently at its opposition, appears to be a beautifully ringed planet through a telescope that's 4-inch or larger. The rings of Saturn are beautiful when viewed during the opposition, as it is completely lit by the sun's light. If you look through a really large telescope like a 16-inch telescope, you will also notice the space between these rings. But even in smaller telescopes like a 4-inch, you can clearly see the rings of Saturn and it will have a certain orientation to it. The ring is nothing but a disk with the planet in between and is along a certain plane. And as the planet wobbles on its own axis, Earth will sometimes fall on this plane, and during this time we will only see the ring from the edge. Being hardly a few kilometers in thickness, these rings, when viewed from the edge at such a large distance through a telescope, appear to be invisible. Which means during some years when you look at Saturn, you will not see any ring. The last time this happened was in the year 2009, and the next time this will happen is in the year 2025. So, if you've got a telescope, look towards Saturn during the March of 2025 and you'll notice the ringed planet is without rings. Currently, when you look at Saturn, its alignment is such that the upper part of the rings are illuminated by the sun, and as you approach 2025, the ring will disappear and later on you can see the lower part of Saturn's rings. The duration between two consecutive ring disappearances is about 16 years, and one should not miss this sight. Apart from the two gas giants that are dominating the evening skies this month, we've also got another bright planet visible in the evenings. Just after sunset this month, if you look towards the west, you will see the bright planet Venus. Planet Venus is currently approaching its elongation, that is the point when the planet is at its farthest distance from the sun. Venus, which appears to be very bright to the naked eye, when viewed through a telescope, gives out a peculiar and similar pattern that we see in our own moon. Venus appears to be illuminated just like the moon in phases. This month, if you observe Venus through a telescope, you will notice that about 60% of the surface of Venus is illuminated and the remaining surface is not lit by the sun's light. As we approach the month of October and November, when viewed through the telescope, Venus appears to be slightly closer to us and its surface appears to be half lit, like a quarter moon. This is when Venus appears to be at the highest point in the evening skies just after sunset, and we call it its elongation. As Venus makes its way on its orbit around the Sun, it will at some point come between the Earth and the Sun, and as it approaches this point, it will appear to be crescent with each passing day. In the month of January, Venus will come exactly between the Earth and the Sun, and we call this the inferior conjunction. Just like the opposition was compared to the full moon, an inferior conjunction is like the new moon, when the moon is in between the Earth and the Sun. So, at inferior conjunction, it would be impossible to find the planet in the evening or the morning skies. And as the planet moves out of inferior conjunction alignment, it will slowly reappear with a crescent and then approaching its elongation in the other direction. After January, that is when Venus will have attained inferior conjunction, it will begin to appear in the morning skies in the east a few hours before sunrise. And as Venus continues on its orbit, it will at some point reach a position behind the Sun, which we call as the superior conjunction of this planet. Along with Venus, Mercury also undergoes inferior and superior conjunctions, and Mercury is also visible this month in the evening sky, but it is very hard to notice as it is dimmer and very close to the horizon. Please like this video so that more people like you can discover it and share the joy that's astronomy. So with all the stars, planets and constellations visible for this month discussed, this is me, Atul, signing off for the month of September. See you in October, and until then, clear skies.